The NBA is looking at expanding again. And I'm going to tell you why this is a bad idea. Mainly because of the Minnesota Timberwolves. All of that in 20 seconds. What's good, everybody? This is your boy Jay with Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. You could be listening to any sports analysis and news in the world, and you chose to ride with us, and we appreciate that. Today, on this video, we're going to talk about the NBA's ambitions when it comes to expansion. All right, the NBA is looking at expanding. They're looking at potentially adding a couple of teams. And to be honest, it doesn't make any sense. It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. And there's a couple reasons why with that. So let's talk through this. The Minnesota Timberwolves right now, owner Glenn Taylor, has put the team up for sale for the third time since 2012. Problem is he ain't found nobody to buy it. Not that he hasn't actually found a buyer, but someone that's willing to buy the team with his terms and conditions, which is leaving the team in Minnesota. And there's no one locally in Minnesota that wants to buy the team. He's approached the owners of the Minnesota Vikings that I've read in the report from Brian Windhorst from ESPN. And it's interesting to see that the Vikings owners didn't want to buy in. Like, in New Orleans, in order to keep the Pelicans down there at the time they were the Hornets, they were able to get the Benson family, who's the owner of the New Orleans Saints, to buy the team to keep them in place. And so because Glenn has been struggling since 2012 to find an ownership group that will buy the team at his asking price, which is north of $1.7 billion, yes, with a B, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're not able to find anybody that's going to actually buy the team and keep them there. I mean, they've had a few people that have bidded on it and had an idea of making the purchase. Let me see. There was a guy out of New Jersey, Dan Strauss, a New Jersey-based healthcare magnate, as well as a former minority owner of the Memphis Grizzlies. They kind of had an offer sheet into place, but it ended up falling through. Mainly because I bet you Glenn Taylor thought that there was a chance the team was going to get moved. Now, the other option is, of course, sell the team to someone in Seattle and just relocate it. But that's something the NBA doesn't want to do. They don't want to keep moving teams around and shuffling them around like that. So I get that. So that's where the expansion conversation is coming in, and this is where it doesn't make any sense. If the Timberwolves are struggling to sell their team and keep them in place, what makes you think two more teams potentially will be vibrant enough to last in the NBA? Right now, financially, the NBA is struggling, so expanding actually helps them in the financial piece, because right now the fee, based upon Windhorst's report, is about $2.5 billion per team. $2.5 billion per team, which means each team, because these fees do not go to the players. When the league decides to expand, all the fees go to the ownership. And so if all the owners get a piece of the pie, that calculates at roughly like $160 million. That would wipe out all the debt that they've been dealing with after everything that happened in 2020 with the COVID situation, as well as with what happened in China and their partnerships there. This could wipe it all out. So this would be perfect for them, right? You would think, oh yeah, expand, add more teams. But then it adds to the next variable, which is realignment, which probably isn't as hard, but then it gets to watering down the product. Right now in all sports, every sport is roughly top heavy. To an extent, the NFL probably has the best parity of any sport, and they don't have that much parity. The reason why I say that is, if you think about it, look at all of the champions over the years. And then look at the teams that make the playoffs over the years. The good thing about the NFL is there's always a turnover when it comes to the playoffs. There's roughly 3 to 4 teams that make the playoffs that didn't make it the year before. And so it gives that allure of parity. It makes you think that every team has a chance. Plus, injuries play a big factor, and usually the healthiest team at the end of the year is the one that usually wins the Super Bowl. So you do have a chance of actually competing in NFL in comparison to the NBA, where it's so star-driven that the top 1% makes a larger difference in the games than they do in other sports. Like, for example, Mike Trout's considered the best, if not one of the greatest baseball players to ever play the game. I don't even think he's made the playoffs yet. That means that he does not impact the game enough to change it to where his team will do better in the playoffs. So, for the NBA, this will do nothing but water down the product and spread out the talent even more. Then we're going to get to the situation where we are today, where everyone's complaining that stars want to go to these bigger cities and play together. I'm not sure if you knew this or even knew this about yourself, but I guarantee you prefer to work with good employees rather than bad ones, right? Even if all the employees and coworkers you have are some of the tops in the industry, you prefer to work with the top of the top because it makes your life easier. That's exactly what NBA players think. This goes back into the 80s. I'm going to do a video to discuss what the difference is between the 80s, 90s, and today's stars, and how player mobility is a lot different in comparison to back then. But that's a conversation for another day. But as of right now, if the NBA wants to prevent watering down their product, they should not look at expansion. Because really an expansion is just a money grab. And that's the last thing the NBA needs. Even though financially it helps, for the longevity of the product, you don't want to do it.